For the last 13 years, I've traveled the world for 4 months at a time. In that period, I've had 2 kids. I've also generated over $35 million in business with over 200,000 customers. And what I figured out is actually not the process of travel, but the seasonality that the travel built back into my life, which now I call the 8-4 rule, is actually how I was able to achieve all of these things without falling into the trap of burnout. And I want to show you how. So 13 years of travel has exposed me to a way to, call it escape autopilot and get out of burnout in a very counterintuitive way. And I call it the 8-4 rule, and that's because the idea is 8 months on, 4 months off, but it doesn't necessarily have to be time and it doesn't necessarily have to be travel oriented. Let me give you the story. It starts with the first year that I escaped the winter in Canada. And, why we start doing something is very rarely why we continue doing that thing. We start working out because of how we feel like it makes us look to the opposite sex. We often continue exercising because of the mental benefit, the energy benefit, or disease prevention, right? With love, it starts with the passion, and then like a warm cup of coffee, right? We continue because of the serenity. And with travel, we often start because of what we want to learn about the world, and then we continue because of what the world teaches us about ourselves. That's the story for me. So I left the first winter, this would have been 2012, and went to Hawaii for 4 months by myself. And I did it to escape the winter, I did it because Hawaii is nice, whatever, right? But every year then, for the last 13 years and counting now, I've traveled a minimum of 4 months over the winter. And I've gone, all different places around the world. And it started for sunlight, exploration, wanderlust, whatever. But what it turned into is something that's been quite wonderful for me, mentally, professionally, which is that every single year now, a minimum of twice a year, when I leave and then when I leave to come back, I reset my focus. I've rebuilt in a seasonality into my life that was otherwise missing. I wipe my calendar clean when I leave for the winter. I pack everything that I need into a backpack because I only bring carry-on. So I do a serious reassessment of, the physical objects that I need. And then when I arrive, I reprioritize. I go back to first principles. And I start putting stuff back into my calendar one by one, based off of who I am today, not who I was before. I have some language to all of this now, which is that most people are in never-ending seasons. It's natural to us to add all of the time. It's not natural to us to subtract. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you're in a never-ending season, you're never-ending adding. Therefore, how often do you add something to your calendar and the first thing you think about is, what's this going to replace? What am I going to remove? The answer is almost never. And even if you do remove something, is it commensurate to the thing that you added? The answer is no. You're just constantly adding more and more and more and more. Taking a more seasonal approach to living is nothing new. It's actually baked into our physiology. You think about our hunter-gatherer ancestors, spring, summer, and fall, they'd be kind of hunting, they'd be gathering berries, whatever it is, and then they would stock up for the winter, and they'd work really hard. The days would be longer because the sun would be out for longer, right? And so they would sleep a little bit less. And then in the winter, what would happen is they would generally spend a lot more time with their community and their family, and they would sleep more because the days got shorter. Now, of course, it was harsh, but think about that built-in seasonality that's ingrained to us. Well, then what happened is the clock was invented and the light bulb was invented. And all of a sudden now, natural time took a backseat to artificial time. It doesn't matter that the sun sets at 5:30 p.m. in the winter and 9 p.m. in the summer, because work is still 9 to 5, your kids still have extracurriculars, you still have all your responsibilities, you still have that call with Europe that's gonna happen, off hours or whatever, and you're always connected. And so what I started to do is I started to lean into this more seasonal lifestyle with this 8-4 approach. And it wasn't just refreshing my calendar, it wasn't just reassessing the things that I owned. It was also accepting the fact that there are going to be times when I really push on some aspects of my life, and there are going to be times when I relax on those aspects of my life and push on others. Everything that matters to me, I envision as a triangle. I've got my health, I've got my relationships, and then I've got my business. And what I've figured out is that the process of betterment is the constant thickening of one arm of that triangle at a time, without letting the rest of the structure collapse. And so what I do for any given season that I'm in is I say, which arm of this triangle am I going to focus on thickening right now, right? Am I going to be in a much more frenetic push, go, go, go season where I'm pushing hard on business? Generally, that's going to happen when I'm in Toronto, surrounded by that energy. Or am I going to be in a season where I'm really going to push forward on my health and my fitness and almost leapfrog that to the next level? Because what I've established is that consistency is how you stop moving backwards. Consistency is actually not how you transform. It's not how you make changes. You make changes through periods of obsession and focus on one thing, and then you stack those upon one another. And so the idea is periods of focus flanked on either side by periods of consistency. The periods of consistency help you stay where you are. The focus helps you move forward. And in knowing that, okay, I'm in a period of focus on money right now, and this aspect of whatever my money arm of my triangle, cool, I'm gonna really hit that, right? I make a list of things that need to be maintained with my relationships. Things like send 2 unsolicited hellos and thank you messages to friends or colleagues every single week. Like, I have this shit as a checklist to make sure that I don't miss it. 15 minutes of one-on-one time with each child on the floor every single day, right? This is what I do to be consistent. And then there's periods of focus on family and relationships where I'm really trying to push that forward. Knowing that there's going to be that period that I'm going to be able to focus on that thing helps reduce the guilt when I'm focusing on something else. Because even if we're doing something that we want to be doing in a way that is really beneficial, I don't know about you, but I still feel guilty about all the stuff that I'm not doing. The 8-4 way of living is not necessarily about travel. It's not necessarily about 8 months and 4 months. It's more about saying, I need to build back a seasonality into my days. I need to identify what's important to me, all of the different things that are important to me, and give them a season. And accept that for that season, that's what I'm going to hit hard. And then build my checklist to make sure that nothing else falls off.